Hey everyone, I'm Jay.
And I'm Sean.
And we watched a movie.
It's what we do.
It is what we do. And after we watch them, we review them. This is a movie review for Sound of Metal. So this movie actually screened at TIFF 2 years ago, like in 2019. And was one of the more talked about movies, I would say. People were excited about this one. And rightfully so. It stars Riz Ahmed as Ruben, a heavy metal drummer. So actually, he and his girlfriend Lou, Lou played by Olivia Cooke, they kind of tour around in their Airstream trailer where they live. And
if you have an Airstream trailer, I feel the odds are high that you live in it.
Well, okay, fair enough. They're living the rock and roll lifestyle.
Yeah.
And they play in a two-person band, just the two of them. She sings, he drums, they make a lot of noise, and they're happy. Until one day he wakes up deaf. Or at least that's how the movie makes it seem. We don't know him very much at all before he goes deaf, but he seems pretty surprised by it. So possibly there's been, a little bit of deterioration before then, but literally one day he wakes up and cannot hear anything. And that's just his life now. So that would be a very difficult thing for anyone.
It would.
Losing your hearing is a scary thing. I think especially for someone who has lived as a hearing person their whole life and is unprepared for this. If you were having it degenerate over time, you may have prepared a little more. But he's got no resources. He doesn't even have insurance. So he's in a bit of a pickle.
He is.
Plus, he can't be a musician anymore. That's the only way he had of supporting himself. He was barely doing it when he could hear. It's kind of not in the cards anymore. Now, this is going to sound weird, and I realize that, but luckily he's also an addict. Yeah. He's been clean for 4 years, pretty much ever since he met Lou. Of course, hearing this sort of life-altering bad news is the kind of thing that might make you want to use again. And Lou recognizes that he's in a bad way and contacts a sponsor, but guess what? Ruben can't hear. So you can't talk to your sponsor. There's no point in going to a meeting. If you can't hear anything, nothing is going to help. So actually, Lou ends up finding this sort of, I don't know if I can call it like a commune, anyways, a deaf community where many deaf people are living together. And the sort of head guy of this is an addict himself. So he is able to lend support. And, they have actually deaf AA meetings, and this whole community is set up to basically teach Ruben how to be deaf, which he does not take to. This is a very hard adjustment, and you can understand how it would be for anyone. Harder still because he kind of has to go cold turkey on the whole hearing world thing, so he's not allowed to have his phone or the internet or his girlfriend. So everything from his past life is removed because he can't do music anymore. He doesn't have a home anymore. He really is just moving into this community and starting over as a deaf person. So that's kind of a big deal.
So life-changing.
For sure. And it has to be. He has to change. He doesn't want to. He's very resistant. Can't blame him. But he really does need to live a different life now and find out how to live this way. Because ignoring it or trying to get your old life back is not going to work. Which is why this community has these rules about cutting you off from those old crutches, right? So Riz Ahmed prepped an awful lot for this movie, and you can really tell he is fantastic in this. He spent 6 months learning to play the drums, which he loses in about 6 minutes into this film. 6 months to learn to play the drums. And then he also learned American Sign Language, because of course that's something he needs to pick up, since he can't hear anything, including his own voice, which is kind of a crazy thing.
It is.
So on set, he actually wore these custom ear devices that they had made for him that emitted a white noise to sort of mimic progressive deafness, so that he couldn't even hear his own voice on set. So they are approximating that for him to get a more authentic performance. And he does a good job, and I can't say whether he does a good job playing someone who is deaf. He does a good job of playing someone who is newly deaf and who is grappling with a huge life change, a huge loss, because it is a loss. And I think it so profoundly changes things for him. He has to grieve it, and he doesn't know how. And he can't really fall back on the old coping mechanisms, which will just it'll mess up his life even more. So he's definitely a man who is adrift, who is lost, and you feel how scary that really must be. But of course, life goes on, and I think you can't help but be inspired by all of the other people around him who have embraced their different abilities, because not everybody in the community is the same. Some are deaf, some are hard of hearing, some are like children of deaf parents. So yeah, it's a lifestyle that he has to adopt, and I do think the more you just fully immerse yourself, the quicker it'll be. But he's going in kicking and screaming. And you can never blame him. You know, like intellectually, you're like, of course, that would be the best thing. And yet, emotionally, you're like, yeah, I would not be just so peaceful about it myself.
No.
And that is basically what they want him to achieve, is to stop thinking about what could be or what should be, to just live in this new life. And yeah, he has a hard time.
Easier said than done.
Acceptance is tough, yeah. So I think it's a really interesting movie about learning your limitations. And not letting them define you, but I think you do have to accept that they exist. And only when you define those limits can you find ways over and above them, right? You can't deal with what you don't even own up to. So
yeah, that's true.
Clearly, there are lots of people in the community who are thriving, and he's got some nice people on his side who want to see him do well. But that's really up to him. You have to do the work. And yeah, of course, it's not fair, but it's a choice. So Riz Ahmed as Ruben, the heavy metal drummer, is pretty incredible. And I would not be sorry to see him on the Oscar ballot. I also hear that they are trying to get Olivia Cooke on for supporting actress. And we do lose her. As I said, they're not allowed to be together or even contact each other. So we really get a strong sense of her in the beginning, and of just how much he leans on her, but she leans on him too. And you can tell how, all they have is each other. They're just traveling around totally isolated from anyone else. They live in this tiny little trailer, and then suddenly they have to split up just when things have gotten the most difficult. Yeah, that's really a tough thing to put on a young couple.
Yes, it would be.
Mm-hmm. So Olivia Cooke, you may know as Artemis in Ready Player One.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize the name, so thank you.
I thought you would, yes. Riz Ahmed, I don't need to remind you.
No, Rogue One.
That's right. So, of course, this was filmed some time ago. It was at TIFF some time ago. The release date was pushed back due to COVID. So it is finally seeing a release. It will be in select theaters.
I don't know where these theaters are.
Well, I have a list if you want to see it. Virtually in the TIFF Bell Lightbox.
Okay.
Virtually, because Toronto is still...
Toronto's climbing.
Yeah. In select theaters, November 20th, 2020. And then it's going to drop quickly, digitally and on demand by December 4th.
That is very quick.
Yes. So you will get to see it very shortly, and I suggest that you do. It's a pretty powerful movie. I like how quickly we come to know what's important to him and how much he loses it. Because there's the hearing loss, but the hearing loss leads to the loss of his career and the loss of his love. So those are three big hardships right off the bat.
Yes, that's a lot to lose.
And so I think we really get to the base of who he is as a person when he is stripped of all of those things. So it's a very vulnerable performance, a very stripped down performance, and I really applaud Riz Ahmed for being able to do it and for putting so much work into it, because that's not easy. Darius Marder is the director, and this is his first film as director, so it's pretty incredible to be getting Oscar-worthy performances out of your actors and putting together one of the most buzzed about movies of the Toronto International Film Festival in 2019. And it's sad that the movie does not get a premiere or get to screen in a lot of theaters, but at the end of the day, it will be seen by people. I think word of mouth is going to be big for this movie. Yeah, it's a good one. It's sad, it's heartbreaking. You can feel the heartbreak, the disappointment. But I think there's also the opportunity there for resilience. And it really does come down to choice in the end.
Sounds good.
Another one to put on your watch list. So remember December 4th for digital downloads. And if you're in one of those places that has theaters open, November 20th, put that on your calendar too. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.
Bye.